That night, as Layla removed the wig to go to bed, she noticed something strange. A few long black strands of hair remained stubbornly attached to her head, even though she tried to pull them off. But instead of stopping, they began to grow little by little as if they had a will of their own. "This can't be happening," Layla muttered, her heart beginning to race. The hair didn't stop. It kept growing, quickly covering her shoulders and reaching down to the floor. In a panic, she grabbed a pair of scissors to cut it, but every time the blades touched the strands, the hair grew even faster, stronger, as if resisting her efforts. Before long, the hair crept up the walls, climbed to the ceiling like a living creature, wrapping itself around everything in the room. Layla was born and raised in a small neighborhood in New Orleans, where every street corner and house seemed to hold ancient stories. Tales of wandering spirits and secrets hidden in the shadows were a part of everyday life. But for Layla, life wasn't illuminated with the mystique of those stories. Instead, it was filled with scars she was forced to carry throughout her life. When Layla was 6, an accident occurred that changed her forever. It was a sweltering afternoon and her mother was hurriedly preparing dinner for the family. In a brief moment of carelessness, a pot of boiling water tipped over, spilling its scalding contents onto Layla's head. Her scream echoed through the small kitchen, drowning out all other sounds. The searing pain felt as though it was tearing her body apart, but worse than the physical pain was the mark it left behind, a large, rough scar running across her scalp. Every morning when she looked in the mirror, Layla was met with an unrelenting reminder of that fateful day. She hated how it made her different. The kids in her neighborhood began calling her cruel names. "Scarhead!" they shouted, pointing and giggling every time she stepped outside. Although her mother gently comforted her, saying, "You're beautiful both inside and out," those words couldn't soothe the wounds she felt inside. Layla learned to avoid looking in the mirror, as if by not seeing her reflection, she could forget her difference. But that didn't stop the prying eyes and mocking laughter of other children. They never missed an opportunity to ridicule her, to turn her into the subject of their cruel jokes. One day, Layla decided to confront her fear. She ventured out to play with the neighborhood kids. Maybe they've grown up, become kinder, she thought, clenching her fists to muster courage. But as soon as she stepped onto the playground, all eyes turned to her. A child shouted, "Scarhead!" The group erupted into laughter and began chasing her, chanting, "Scarhead, Scarhead!" Their voices echoed as though they were hunters pursuing prey. Layla ran as fast as she could, but her small legs couldn't keep up. They surrounded her like a pack of wolves, and Layla fell to the ground, her knees scraped and bleeding. Their laughter rang out, each sound sharp as a blade cutting into her heart. She lay there, tears streaming down her face, feeling as if the whole world had turned its back on her. "Leave her alone!" A loud, shaky voice cut through the air. Layla looked up to see Marcus, the boy from next door, standing protectively in front of the group. Marcus wasn't like the other kids. His eyes always carried a hint of sadness, as though he bore hidden pains only he understood. Marcus wasn't perfect either. He had a stutter, which made him a target for mockery as well. But today, Marcus didn't hesitate to stand up for Layla. Go away!" Marcus shouted, his lips trembling but his gaze unwavering. The kids hesitated before scattering, leaving Marcus and Layla alone on the empty street. He approached her carefully and helped her up. Through her tears, Layla looked at him, feeling as though she had found an ally in this cruel world. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out an old red scarf. Take this," he said, his hands shaking as he handed it to Layla. It'll hide the scar." Layla looked at the scarf, her heart brimming with gratitude. It was just a small piece of fabric, but to her, it carried immense meaning. It didn't just cover her scar. It became a shield, protecting her from the harsh stares of the world. In that moment, Marcus was no longer just the stuttering boy next door. He became the one ray of light in her dark and lonely world. From that day on, Layla never went outside without the red scarf. It became a part of her, just as she carried her story, her pain, and the rare kindness that Marcus had shown her. Layla grew up with a burning dream, to become an actress. For Layla, acting wasn't just a career. The stage was a place where she could escape a reality filled with pain and transform into anyone she wanted to be. When she received a scholarship to a prestigious performing arts college in Atlanta, she believed it was the start of a new journey. A journey where she could forget the scar on her head, the ridicule of her childhood, and find freedom in expressing her true self. There she met Kendra, a girl who stood out in any crowd. Kendra embodied confidence and charm. Her long flowing hair shimmered like a cascading stream with every step she took, and her designer outfits always turned heads. Kendra wasn't just beautiful. She knew how to wield her beauty to shine. Layla, on the other hand, felt like a shadow, dull and insignificant next to Kendra. Yet it was precisely Kendra's radiance that drew Layla in, making her want to stay close, hoping a bit of that light might reflect onto her. One day, during a rehearsal, Layla sat in front of a mirror adjusting her scarf to hide her scar. The dim light of the dressing room made the scar appear even more prominent. She tugged and shifted the scarf, but nothing felt right. Sitting nearby, Kendra glanced over and smiled. "Layla, why don't you wear your hair naturally?" Her voice was gentle but filled with curiosity. Layla flinched, her hands gripping the scarf tightly. "I just don't like it," she replied, avoiding Kendra's gaze. She didn't want to mention the scar, didn't want to bring up the pain that had become a part of who she was. Kendra tilted her head as if considering something. "Hold on a second," she said, rummaging through her bag. A moment later, she pulled out a sleek, jet-black wig, thick and glossy like silk. "Try this," Kendra said, her eyes lighting up. "Trust me, you'll feel so much more confident." Layla eyed the wig skeptically. "I'm not sure, Kendra," she murmured, her voice barely audible. But Kendra's determined look left her little room to refuse. "Just try it," Kendra insisted, gently nudging the wig toward Layla. Reluctantly, Layla took it and placed it on her head. The initial sensation was strange, slightly heavy, slightly suffocating. But when she lifted her head to look in the mirror, her eyes widened. The wig fit her face perfectly, completely covering the scar she despised. In that moment, she was no longer Layla. She was a different version of herself, more confident, more beautiful. "Oh my gosh, you look amazing!" Kendra exclaimed, clapping her hands with delight. "See? I told you. You have to keep it. This is my gift to you." Layla gazed at herself in the mirror, a whirlwind of emotions coursing through her. She managed a weak smile. "Thank you, Kendra," she said, her voice still tinged with hesitation. Kendra pulled up a chair and draped an arm around her. "Layla, you're so much more beautiful than you think. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise," she said, her eyes sincere. But Layla didn't realize that what seemed like a symbol of newfound confidence was the beginning of something strange. The wig didn't just cover her scar. It began to overshadow her true self. And from that moment, Layla embarked on a journey she never anticipated, where the truth and pain of her past would return to confront her in ways she couldn't imagine. After an evening performance at the University Theatre, Layla sank into a seat in the audience, exhaling deeply after her act. She closed her eyes, savoring the rare moment of peace, when a warm, deep voice broke the silence behind her. "Layla, you're truly talented." She looked up to see Jordan, a tall young man with a radiant face and a disarming smile. He stood there, dressed smartly in a white shirt, exuding confidence that was understated yet captivating. His eyes, sharp and intense, gazed directly at her with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. "Thank you," Layla replied, her voice trembling slightly, caught off guard and a little flustered. Jordan sat beside her, his eyes never leaving hers. "I've watched all your performances. There's something about you, something different. You have this ability to make people feel every word, every emotion." Layla felt her cheeks flush. His words reached deep into her heart, into the hidden corners where she kept her doubts about herself. "I truly appreciate that," she said, trying to mask her unease. Jordan smiled, his eyes sparkling like the theatre lights. "I'm hosting a small party tomorrow. I'd love for you to come. And if possible, bring your friend. Kendra, right?" His words made her pause briefly, but she quickly nodded, striving to keep her composure. "Of course, we'll be there." As Jordan walked away, Layla stayed seated, her heart racing. Images of him replayed in her mind, his gentle smile, his piercing eyes, and the way his words made her feel unique. This might be her chance, not only to shine but to prove to herself that she was more than just someone else's shadow. The next morning, Layla spent the entire day preparing. She chose a simple yet flattering red dress, styled her hair carefully, and concealed the scar beneath the wig Kendra had given her. She promised herself that tonight would be her moment, a turning point to step out of Kendra's shadow. When she arrived at the party, the room was already crowded. The soft glow from the crystal chandelier created an atmosphere both warm and elegant. The air buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and lively chatter. Layla entered feeling the occasional glance from strangers, but no one really paid her much attention. And then Kendra arrived. Her long, sleek hair cascaded down her back, shimmering like a waterfall of silver under the lights. She wore a stunning emerald green gown that hugged her perfect figure. Instinctively, every head in the room turned toward Kendra. Layla stood frozen, feeling herself fade into the background of the bustling room. She glanced toward Jordan, who was standing by the bar. His eyes lit up when he saw Kendra, and he walked over to greet her, his smile brighter than Layla had ever seen. "Kendra, I'm so glad you're here," he said warmly. Layla felt as though she had been punched in the stomach. She tried to step closer, forcing a weak smile, but it seemed as though no one noticed. "You're incredible," Jordan continued, his gaze fixed on Kendra. "You always know how to command attention." Those words were like knives cutting into Layla's heart. She knew Kendra was beautiful, always the center of attention, but hearing such admiration from Jordan, someone Layla had just begun to admire, ignited a storm of jealousy and hurt within her. Layla stepped back, her eyes beginning to sting. She couldn't let them see her weakness. She slipped out onto the balcony, where the chilly Atlanta night air wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. She stood there, gazing at the twinkling city lights below, wondering if she would ever shine like Kendra, or if she was destined to remain a faint shadow. But deep in her mind, a small but resolute voice emerged. "No, I won't let this define me." That night, Layla realized that to change she couldn't wait for validation from others. She had to find her own light, even if it meant confronting the deepest wounds within her. But what Layla didn't yet know was that the light she sought would come from a place she never expected. One evening, as the last rays of sunlight faded, Layla walked past a small street near her apartment complex. The flickering neon lights of a tiny shop at the corner caught her eye. Its faded sign reading "Unique Hair" emitted a cold glow in the darkness, giving the impression of a place long forgotten. Drawn by the shop's mysterious aura, Layla hesitated for a moment before deciding to step inside. A small bell jingled as the old wooden door creaked open, breaking the silence of the space. Inside, the air was damp, and the dim yellow lights made everything look like a strange dream. Behind the counter sat an old woman with a wrinkled face but sharp, piercing eyes. As Layla approached, the woman looked up and gave a peculiar smile, one that was both kind and unsettling. "What do you need, young lady?" the woman asked in a raspy but somewhat friendly voice. "I'm looking for the Midnight Ray wig," Layla replied, her voice full of hope. That name, Midnight Ray, had spread throughout her university as a symbol of allure and class. She had heard about it from Kendra, who always appeared flawless. And now Layla wanted that same beauty for herself. The old woman nodded slowly, rising from her old wooden chair and disappearing into a small room in the back. The sound of clinking metal filled the air, and a few minutes later she returned holding a sleek black wig, thick and smooth as silk. Layla's eyes widened, unable to look away. The wig seemed to exude an almost magnetic allure, as if it was calling out to her. "It's beautiful," Layla whispered, her trembling hands reaching for the wig. "Do you want to know why it's cheaper than anywhere else?" Layla asked, her curiosity piqued, but without suspicion. The old woman gave a cryptic smile. "You'll find out," she replied softly, her voice carrying an unsettling strength. Layla paid, feeling as if she had purchased a treasure. As she left the shop, she didn't notice the woman's gaze following her, the toothy grin never fading. Back at home, Layla wasted no time. She stood in front of her mirror, carefully placing the wig on her head. The moment the wig touched her, she felt an instant change. It wasn't just a wig. It seemed to fuse with her, fitting her face and head with an almost supernatural perfection. Layla stared at her reflection, stunned. "Oh my God," she whispered. The wig didn't just cover the scar on her head. It transformed her into someone else. Someone beautiful, radiant, and brimming with confidence. Her eyes sparkled as she felt as though she had stepped into a world she never thought she could belong to. The next day, when Layla arrived at school, everyone stopped to look at her. Admiring glances and whispers of awe surrounded her, making her feel as if she was glowing. "Layla, you look amazing," one classmate said. But that joy didn't last long. That night, as Layla removed the wig to go to bed, she noticed something strange. A few long black strands of hair clung stubbornly to her head, no matter how hard she tried to pull them off. Instead of stopping, they began to grow, slowly at first, then faster, as if they had a will of their own. "This can't be happening," Layla murmured, her heart pounding faster. The hair didn't stop. It grew rapidly, covering her shoulders, then spilling onto the floor. In panic, she grabbed a pair of scissors, but each time she cut the strands, they grew back faster and stronger, as if resisting her. Before long, the hair climbed up the walls, spreading to the ceiling like a living organism wrapping itself around everything in the room. Layla screamed, struggling to escape the encroaching hair, but it wouldn't relent. The strands slithered like tentacles, reaching everywhere, forming a massive black cocoon that engulfed her small apartment. In her moment of terror, Layla realized the wig wasn't just a fashion accessory. It was something alive, something dangerous, and now she was trapped by the consequences of her own choice. The real horror had only just begun. Layla curled up on an old chair in Marcus's apartment, her eyes brimming with tears and her heart weighed down with despair. The hair, once a symbol of newfound confidence, had now turned into a nightmare she couldn't escape. It wasn't just hair. It was alive, spreading, and seemingly trying to consume her. "Marcus, I don't know what to do anymore," Layla whispered, her voice trembling. Marcus, the only friend she had trusted since childhood, sat across from her. He didn't say a word, but his eyes were filled with empathy. He had witnessed Layla's growing panic over the past few days, the times she had tried and failed to cut the hair, the times she hid the grotesque locks beneath scarves, and the sleepless nights consumed by fear of the hair attacking her. After a long silence, Marcus stood up. "I think we need to see Madame Amelia," he said firmly. Layla frowned. "A psychic? Marcus, you can't be serious. I don't believe in that stuff." "But you believe in the uncontrollable hair growing from your head, don't you?" Marcus countered, his tone tinged with frustration but still gentle. "Amelia is well known in this neighborhood. If anyone can help, it's her." With no other options, Layla reluctantly agreed. Marcus led her to a small house tucked away in a dark alley, a place that felt disconnected from the rest of the world. The old wooden door creaked as Marcus pushed it open. The faint scent of herbs wafted through the air, giving Layla a mix of comfort and unease. Inside, Madame Amelia sat behind a round table covered in lace, the flickering candlelight casting shadows on her face, her deep, piercing eyes fixed on Layla the moment she walked in. "I've been expecting you," the woman said in a low, authoritative voice, as if she already knew everything. Layla sat down, her palms damp with sweat. She didn't know where to begin, but Madame Amelia didn't wait for her to speak. "You've brought a curse upon yourself," she began, her tone more declarative than speculative. "The hair on your head is not just hair. It is part of a deeply wounded soul." Layla swallowed hard, her body frozen. What do you mean? She stammered. Madame Amelia leaned in, her ancient eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight. That hair once belonged to a young woman, brutally murdered. Her spirit is trapped within it, carrying her pain and wrath. You are not just wearing a wig, you're carrying the vengeance of a lost soul. Madame Amelia's words cut through Layla's mind like a sharp blade. She felt as though every cell in her body had frozen. No way. How is that even possible? She stammered. Madame Amelia leaned forward, her hands clasped together on the table. You activated the curse the moment you put it on, she said, her voice steady yet heavy with meaning. Every feeling of insecurity, every doubt, every anger you harbour only strengthens that spirit. Now, you're not just fighting the hair, you're fighting yourself. Layla buried her face in her hands, hot tears streaming down her cheeks. How do I get rid of it? I can't live like this. Madame Amelia remained silent for a long moment, her gaze contemplative. Finally, she spoke. The only way to free that spirit and to free yourself is to face your pain. You must tell your story. Every dark corner, every wound, every fear. You must confront yourself in front of others. Layla lifted her head, her eyes red and swollen. You mean I have to let everyone know? About my scar? About everything I've been through? Madame Amelia nodded solemnly. You cannot hide forever, Layla. That spirit is a mirror, reflecting your fears and anger. Only by facing it can you break the curse. Layla turned to Marcus, her eyes pleading. Do you think I can do this? Marcus took her hand firmly, his gaze filled with sincerity. Layla, you're stronger than you think. You've overcome so much already, and you can do this now. I'll be with you every step of the way. In that moment, under the dim candlelight, Layla felt a glimmer of hope, but she also knew that to break the curse, she would have to confront the greatest fear of her life, her truth. As Layla left Madame Amelia's house, her heart felt heavy. The fortune-teller's words echoed in her mind, repeating over and over, You must tell your story. How could she do that? How could she lay bare her deepest wounds in front of others? That night, Layla couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the long black hair draped around her, now not only a physical burden, but also a symbol of everything she had tried to hide. Each strand seemed to whisper in her ears, dredging up memories of the times she had been mocked, the pain she had suppressed for far too long. The next morning, Layla decided to act. She knew she couldn't live in fear forever. If this curse was a reflection of her pain, she would break it by facing it head-on, facing what had hurt her the most. On the final day of the semester, all the art students at her university were required to present a solo performance as their final project. For Layla, this was her one chance to follow Madame Amelia's advice, telling her story to the public. Layla spent an entire week writing her script. Each word felt like a blade cutting into her pain, but she didn't stop. She wrote about the scar on her head, about the mockery she endured as a child, about the betrayal of a close friend, and about her deepest fears. She wrote about the midnight ray wig, a curse that had forced her to confront herself. The day of the performance arrived. Layla stood backstage, her heart pounding. She wore a simple black dress, and for the first time in years, the wig she had once relied on was gone. Her natural hair, thin, sparse, and marked by the prominent scar on her scalp, was exposed for all to see. I can do this, she whispered to herself, clenching her hands to stop them from trembling. Marcus stood nearby, smiling encouragingly. You've got this, Layla. I believe in you. When her name was called, Layla stepped onto the stage. The bright lights flooded her, momentarily blinding her. But instead of the usual panic she felt, there was a surprising calm. She stood tall, smiled faintly, and began to speak. This isn't a story about perfection. It's a story about pain. and how I learned to embrace it. Layla shared everything. The accident when she was 6 that left the scar she'd carried all her life, the teasing and isolation, the Midnight Ray wig, the curse, and how it had forced her to face her fears. Her voice occasionally trembled, but she didn't falter. Every word was raw, real, and deeply personal. Her story resonated through the room, each word imbued with a sincerity and power that captivated everyone. When she finished, there was silence, so quiet Layla could hear her heartbeat. Then, a single clap broke the stillness. Another followed, and soon the entire auditorium erupted into a standing ovation. Layla looked around, her eyes brimming with tears. Among the faces in the crowd, she saw Kendra, her former best friend, sitting in the back row, her head bowed in discomfort. But more importantly, she saw Marcus, standing to the side of the stage, clapping with a proud smile. That night, when Layla returned home, she stood in front of the mirror once more. The long black hair that had haunted her was gone. Her real hair, thin and sparse, was no longer a source of shame. She touched the scar on her head, but instead of feeling pain, she felt pride. The curse was broken, not just on her hair, but in her heart. Layla no longer feared the stares of others, no longer dreaded judgment. She had faced herself, and she had won. For Layla, this wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was a new beginning, a place where she was no longer imprisoned by her past, but free to live as her true self. The final day of the semester had arrived, and the atmosphere in the university's art auditorium buzzed with excitement and nervous anticipation. It was the day each student would perform their solo piece, a chance to showcase not only what they had learned, but also who they truly were. Layla stood backstage staring at the closed stage curtain. Her heart pounded, but this time it wasn't from fear. She no longer hid behind scarves or wigs. For the first time in years, she revealed her natural hair, thin, imperfect, and marked by the scar on her scalp. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus whispered from behind, his eyes filled with both concern and encouragement. Layla turned to him, smiling. "I'm sure. It's time I tell my story." Her name was called. Applause filled the room as Layla stepped onto the stage. Bright lights flooded her vision, momentarily blinding her. But instead of the panic she usually felt, she was unusually calm. She stood tall, offered a soft smile, and began to speak. "Hello, everyone. My name is Layla, and today's story isn't a play. It's the truth. The truth about a girl who spent her entire life hiding from herself." Layla shared everything, the accident at 6 that left a scar on her head, the teasing and ridicule she endured as a child, and how she hid her pain beneath scarves. Her voice wavered occasionally, but she didn't falter. She continued, recounting her friendship with Kendra, who had been both an inspiration and a source of deep hurt. "I used to think my beauty depended on how others saw me. I let people determine my worth, and it made me lose myself." Layla paused, taking a deep breath. The entire room was silent. Every eye was on her, not out of curiosity, but out of connection to the raw honesty of her story. And then, the Midnight Ray wig came into my life. It wasn't just an accessory, it was a curse, but also a gift, because it forced me to confront myself, to face my greatest fear, that I wasn't enough. Layla ended her story by speaking about forgiveness, not just forgiving Kendra or those who mocked her, but forgiving herself. "I'm no longer afraid to show this scar, because it doesn't define me. I define myself." When she finished, the room fell silent for a few seconds, as if everyone was absorbing her words. Then applause erupted, slow at first, then building into a standing ovation. Layla bowed, tears welling up in her eyes. Among the faces, she spotted Kendra, sitting in the back row, looking both embarrassed and humbled. But more importantly, she saw Marcus, leaning against the wall on the other side of the auditorium, clapping softly with pride in his eyes. His smile seemed to say, "You did it." As the stage lights dimmed, Layla felt as though a new chapter of her life had begun. She no longer needed anyone's approval to feel beautiful or valuable. She understood that her worth wasn't in her appearance, but in her ability to confront pain and draw strength from what once broke her. Layla left the auditorium with a light heart. For the first time in her life, she felt truly free. Layla's story isn't just about overcoming fear and insecurity. It's a reminder to all of us: define yourself instead of letting the world define you. What do you think about Layla's journey? Have you ever felt like you weren't good enough or judged by others? Share your story in the comments, because each of us has our own journey, and sometimes telling your story is the first step to healing. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss more meaningful content. Layla has found her light. Now it's your turn to find yours. See you in the next story.